souhaiter faire un clin d'œil à cette histoire commune ce matin par le cadeau que vous nous avez remis.
Dear Melania, to paying tribute to this joint history, thanks to the gift you kindly gave us this morning.
Monsieur le Président, vous venez de rappeler, et nous l'avons fait ensemble ce matin, la profondeur, la force et l'intensité des liens qui unissent nos deux pays.
Mr. President, you just reminded us, like we did earlier this morning, how deep, how strong, and how intense the relationship is between our two countries.
Cette relation a commencé dès la Révolution qui vous a vu naître et par la Révolution qui nous a libérés, et tout au long de notre histoire commune par les guerres que nous avons conduites ensemble pour la liberté, pour nos valeurs. Cette relation, elle repose sur un socle inoubliable, des vies données, des enthousiasmes partagés.
This relationship, from the very beginning, is rooted in the revolution that saw the birth of the United States of America and the revolution that freed us. All along our joint history, through the wars that we have led together for freedom and to defend our values, this relationship, which is based on all of our values.
Et ce soir, je ne peux pas ne pas avoir une pensée pour le jeune Lafayette arrivant dans un continent qu'il ne connaissait pas, prêt à perdre la vie parce qu'il aimait la liberté. Et je ne peux pas ne pas avoir une pensée pour les dizaines de milliers de jeunes soldats américains qui, durant la Première Guerre mondiale, comme durant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, sont venus mourir sur une terre qui n'était pas la leur, mais pour une liberté qu'ils chérissaient, parce qu'elle était un peu de leur liberté.
And tonight, my thoughts go to the young Lafayette who came to risk his life because of his love for freedom. And my thoughts also go to the tens of thousands of American soldiers, young soldiers who gave their lives during World War I and World War II on a soil which was not theirs, but for this freedom which they cherished and which was theirs.
Nous avons toujours été au rendez-vous de cette histoire commune. C'est pourquoi, aujourd'hui, nous n'avons pas d'autre choix que d'être à ce même rendez-vous.
We have always been there for the appointments of this joint history, and this is the reason why today we have no alternative but to be there also for an appointment with history.
Avec une volonté commune, de part et d'autre de l'océan, qui est de rendre nos pays plus forts, plus grands, diriez-vous, plus solides, mais en n'oubliant jamais que, tout en les rendant plus forts, notre tâche est toujours encore plus ambitieuse, encore davantage que cela. Notre tâche, à la tête des États-Unis d'Amérique comme à la tête de la France, est toujours un peu d'embrasser de cet esprit d'universel pour lesquels tant et tant de générations se sont sacrifiées.
There is a joint willingness on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean to build our countries, to make them stronger, greater, you would say, and more solid. But let us not forget that our task, accordingly, is to always be more ambitious. Our task at the head of the United States and at the head of France is also about this touch of universality for which so many generations sacrifice themselves.
Ces valeurs que nous portons, c'est celles que, mesdames et messieurs, ce soir dans cette salle, vous représentez parfaitement de là où vous êtes. Qu'il s'agisse de la culture, de la science, du sport, de la vie économique, comme de notre vie politique ou diplomatique. Il y a toujours quelque chose de plus qui vous habite, ou que vous représentez, parce que vous êtes américain ou parce que vous êtes français.
These values that we support, ladies and gentlemen, you very much represent them, you who are here with us tonight, be it in the field of culture, science, sport, the economic life, the political life, or diplomacy. There's always this little extra which you represent because you're French, because you're American.
C'est pourquoi, Monsieur le Président, nous avons décidé l'un et l'autre de travailler ensemble pour nos pays et parce que nous sommes conscients d'un intérêt plus grand que nous qui nous oblige. C'est pourquoi nos militaires à qui je veux ici rendre hommage ont œuvré ensemble dans un cadre légitime il y a quelques jours. Et c'est pourquoi nous continuerons ensemble à œuvrer pour que partout, la stabilité, nos valeurs soient préservées.
This is the reason why, Mr. President, we've decided to work together for both our countries, and also because this duty is about something that goes beyond us. And this is also the reason why our military took legitimate action a few days ago. This is also the reason why we will work for stability and to preserve our values.
C'est le seul moyen que nous avons l'un et l'autre d'être au rendez-vous de cette histoire qui nous dépasse et qui nous oblige. Alors, Monsieur le Président, beaucoup commentent notre amitié personnelle, mais celle-ci vient compléter cette histoire commune et je crois la rend plus forte encore.
This is, Mr. President, the only way we both have to deal with history that goes beyond us, the duty that is ours. And many comment our friendship, but I think it only helps us work together towards these goals.
Sans doute des deux côtés de l'océan, il y a 2 ans de cela, peu auraient prédit que vous et moi allions nous retrouver dans cet endroit, sous cette configuration. Et c'est sans doute pour cette raison que vous et moi avons beaucoup de choses en commun qui doivent relever de la détermination, peut-être de la chance et de l'envie indomptable de servir cette histoire de votre pays, cette histoire de mon pays et cette histoire commune.
On both sides of the ocean, some 2 years ago, very few would have bet on us being here together today. But as a matter of fact, we share the same determination and the willingness to serve both our countries, your country, my country, and the rest of the world.
J'ai appris à vous connaître, vous avez appris à me connaître. Nous savons l'un et l'autre que nous ne changeons pas facilement d'avis, mais nous avons la volonté totale de travailler ensemble. Et je crois la capacité constamment mesurée de nous écouter l'un l'autre. Et c'est dans cette relation, fort de cette histoire commune, conscient de tous les défis qui sont face à nous, que je veux vous remercier pour nos échanges et pour votre invitation.
I got to know you, you got to know me. We both know that none of us easily changes his mind, but we will work together and we have this ability to listen to one another. This is the reason why our relationship will serve our strong history, and we are also aware of the challenges ahead of us, but we will keep working together. And for the quality of our exchanges, I would like to thank you for this as well as for your invitation.
Monsieur le Président, cher Donald, chère Mélania, merci infiniment d'avoir honoré la France, de nous avoir honorés avec mon épouse Brigitte et l'ensemble de la délégation française par votre invitation à cette première visite d'État. Cet honneur est à la hauteur de l'amitié qui porte nos deux pays. Et laissez-moi à mon tour porter un toast.
Mr. President, dear Donald, dear Melania, thank you. Thank you for honoring France, for honoring me and Brigitte and the French delegation with this first state visit, which is commensurate to the quality and the level of the bonds between our two countries. And in turn, please allow me to raise my glass.
Laissez-moi porter un toast en la mémoire de tous nos patriotes et de toutes celles et ceux qui, de chaque côté de l'océan, se sont constamment battus pour nos valeurs. Laissez-moi porter un toast à la dette qui est la nôtre, celle d'être à la hauteur de leur sacrifice. Laissez-moi porter un toast au peuple américain, à son président et à vous, Madame la Première Dame. Laissez-moi porter un toast à l'amitié indéfectible qui unit nos deux pays, à l'amitié entre la France et les États-Unis d'Amérique.
Please allow me to raise my glass to all our fellow citizens on both sides of the ocean who fought for our values. Please allow me to raise my glass. We have to be up to the debt and to that we owe them and up to their sacrifice. Please allow me to raise my glass to the friendship, the unbreakable friendship between France and the United States.
All right, there you see a welcome to Hannity, and the French President Macron just finished speaking at the White House, the first White House state dinner hosted by President Trump and the First Lady, Melania Trump. Also tonight, we have a lot of news to get to. The U.S. is now making significant diplomatic progress on the Korean Peninsula and all around the world. In just a few moments, we will break down what are just remarkable developments put in motion by policies of peace through strength. By the way, something just unthinkable in the Obama years of appeasement. Plus, tonight, we'll reveal why many in the mainstream media are actively actually rooting for the administration to fail on the world stage. Sadly, it's not happening for them. And spoiler alert, it doesn't have anything to do with Russia. Russia, stormy, stormy. Next, we have a brand new damning report breaking right here on this show. Sarah Carter revealing that fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe may have actually given a stand-down order during the initial phase of the Clinton email investigation. Also, Chairman Goodlatte, Chairman Gowdy, they just struck a deal with the Department of Justice to turn over previously unreleased documents related to Hillary Clinton's private email server investigation. Now, we're going to analyze all of this and so much more in tonight's very important breaking news opening monologue. All right, as you just saw, President Trump moments ago wrapping up a toast with the French president at the first state dinner. Now, this special relationship blossoming between the president and President Macron, it's just one aspect as one of huge Trump diplomatic success. Now, the mainstream media won't report this, but the Trump administration, they are making incredible strides all over Asia. In fact, with every passing day, the U.S. is now getting closer and closer to holding direct talks with North Korea. Now, just this week, the dictator, Kim Jong-un, made a series of concessions, including the suspension of all ballistic missile testing, the closure of a nuclear development site, and North Korea's rocket man even dropped a demand that the U.S. troops leave the Korean Peninsula. Now, earlier today, President Trump lauded this progress and even had kind words for Kim Jong-un and his newfound willingness to compromise on the world stage. Watch this.
Kim Jong-un he really has been very open and I think very honorable from everything we're seeing. Now, a lot of promises have been made by North Korea over the years, but they've never been in this position. I hope that we will be able to deal in a very open and honorable fashion with North Korea. I started a process, and when I did, everybody thought I was doing it absolutely wrong. But in the meantime, for 25 years, people have been dealing and nothing happened, and a lot's happening right now. I think we're doing very well. Meetings are being set up, and I want to see denuclearization of North Korea. A lot of concessions have already been made. We have made no concessions, despite some of the media saying that I've made concessions. I haven't even discussed a concession.
All right, naturally, instead of reporting the diplomatic progress on the Korean Peninsula, which the whole world gets safer if it works, well, your mainstream media, of course, twisting those remarks in order to trash the president once again and, of course, distract their viewers from Trump's undeniable initial success all over the world stage. Let's take a look at this.
He said that North Korea's dictator Kim Jong-un has been very open and very honorable in how they have been dealing with, I guess, planning out their meeting to come. What do you make of that?
It's quite a strong adjective to use for a dictator of a nation that imprisons its people.
He talked about how great Kim Jong-un is being.
You must talk about this just for a moment.
Yeah.
Did he call him a great leader?
What, he didn't. I don't know if he used the word great leader.
Honorable.
He said honorable.
Honorable.
Yeah.
And
open. Call him honorable and open. I don't know if you can, in real terms, whether you can ever call him open.
If any other president, Democrat or Republican, had used such words, Donald Trump would have been the first person to say it's outrageous to say that a dictator, to someone who represses all the human rights in his country, that lets his people starve, that takes Americans as hostage, is open and honorable.
When I heard the word honorable, I thought of the Otto Warmbier's parents, who sat in these two seats with me just so many months ago talking about their son who was tortured in North Korea. How is Kim Jong-un honorable?
There's nothing honorable about Kim Jong-un. He's a sociopath.
Well, you just saw another example, the mainstream media attacking this president, no matter what he does. If he gave $10 million to every person on earth, they'd say, why not 11? I guess they forgot about all of Trump's peace through strength strategy and how it's working, where the United States, remember, we sent multiple carrier strike groups to the region. We increased the sanctions on this rogue regime. We pressured China, and they helped. Oh, yeah, and the president called out Little Rocket Man's terrible treatment of his own people in a very clear and public way without backing down. The media is not used to this.
No one has shown more contempt for other nations and for the well-being of their own people than the depraved regime in North Korea. It is responsible for the starvation deaths of millions of North Koreans and for the imprisonment, torture, killing, and oppression of countless more. The horror of life in North Korea is so complete that citizens pay bribes to government officials to have themselves exported aboard as slaves. They would rather be slaves than live in North Korea. No regime has oppressed its own citizens more totally or brutally than the cruel dictatorship in North Korea. North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland.
All right, time for a history lesson. Remember, it was only a few months ago the mainstream media said that Donald Trump's tough action, his rhetoric, it would result in a nuclear holocaust. This was their predictions. Watch this.
The idea of a nuclear showdown with North Korea keeps you up at night? I would recommend deleting your Twitter app.
He is not merely being cavalier with a threat about nuclear war. He's being cavalier in a way that makes him seem demented.
These are the messages from a person who is not well, from a leader who is not fit for office.
President Trump is goading Kim Jong-un to test a nuclear missile again, to prove its reliability, to show him wrong. And fundamentally, I think it comes across as two kindergartners who are jostling each other, except that each has nuclear weapons.
Well, here's what...
Too late after 100,000 Americans die.
After a nuclear holocaust.
Or after 1 million die in Seattle.
And that's where we are. This is not an exaggeration.
Trump's comments about nuclear weapons have experts worried he could literally inadvertently trigger a catastrophe.
Catastrophe. All right, let's get this straight. President Trump takes very tough action, and the media has a meltdown. This strategy actually brings Kim Jong-un to the negotiating table, talking about denuclearization of the entire Korean peninsula. The president makes encouraging remarks, and the media still has a meltdown. You know what the media didn't have a meltdown over? How about Obama's appeasement of the mullahs in Iran in what is probably the dumbest single deal in the history of mankind, where the United States of America, where your ex-president gave away $150 billion of your dollars, cargo planes full of cash and other currencies, to a regime that chants death to America, death to Israel on a weekly basis, burns our flag, burns the Israeli flag, all because of a promise from Iran to temporarily halt their nuclear weapons program, but they still got to spin their centrifuges, and we didn't get to inspect anything. That's the dumbest deal ever. You also didn't see a media freakout. Remember Bill Clinton? He said, there's a good deal for American people. His appeasement in North Korea, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father. Remember this diplomatic dereliction? Take a look.
This is a good deal for the United States. North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons. South Korea, with support from Japan and other nations, will bear most of the cost of providing North Korea with fuel to make up for the nuclear energy it is losing. And they will pay for an alternative power system for North Korea that will allow them to produce electricity while making it much harder for them to produce nuclear weapons. The United States and international inspectors will carefully monitor North Korea to make sure it keeps its commitments. Only as it does so will North Korea fully join the community of nations.
Didn't work out too well. So it's time to learn from the failures on the world stage. Appeasement never works. It incurs aggression. Now, this is something former President Reagan knew all too well, which is why he refused to relent, refused to appease, refused to placate the Soviet Union, the former evil empire, as he described them. Now, back then, many on the left were also predicting the worst, that Reagan would bring us to the brink of nuclear war. And what happened? The Berlin Wall came tumbling down.
There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And the wall came down. We'll have more on President Trump's significant diplomatic progress all throughout the show. We'll show you how bribing dictators and kissing the rings of despots and murderers has failed all throughout history. Now let's turn to a brand new explosive report from our own Sarah Carter, uncovering a damning new revelation about what is serious misconduct at some of the highest levels in our government. Now, according to Sarah tonight, multiple sources are saying that fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe issued a stand-down order during the initial phases of the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server. And according to Carter's sources tonight, McCabe was overseas when he became aware of the investigation and sent electronic communications voicing his displeasure with agents. In other words, doing their job. One FBI official tells Sarah Carter, quote, McCabe tried to steer people off the private email investigation that appears to be obstruction and should be investigated. Now, this, of course, comes on the heels of the IG report on McCabe's firing, revealing, quote, McCabe said that a high-ranking Obama Justice Department official expressed concerns about FBI agents taking overt steps in the Clinton Foundation investigation during the presidential campaign. So it's clear that during the 2016 presidential election, the deep state, as we have now been reporting over a year, was alive and well. Now, we have reached out to Andrew McCabe for comment. We have yet to hear back. And also breaking tonight, Sarah Carter just tweeted out, DOJ will make the 6 months of missing texts that were eventually located by the IG, that's Horowitz, between Strzok and Page available to Congress sometime tonight or tomorrow, according to sources. That's developing. We will comb through all of those texts if and when they become available. This is a huge development. And meanwhile, we know the two House committee chairmen, Bob Goodlatte, Trey Gowdy, they are making huge strides on their efforts to hold this deep state accountable. Now, this week, the two Republican congressmen, in fact, struck a deal with the Department of Justice and will now gain access to documents surrounding the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton and how she mishandled classified information on her unauthorized private email server. Now, these new developments should shine a light on why James Comey gave white glove special treatment to Hillary while turning a blind eye to her serious crimes. Do we have equal justice under the law? Now, tonight, there's a new report. James Comey is lawyered up, and he has, in fact, tapped a personal friend, former U.S. attorney, to help him navigate the current muddy legal waters surrounding him. We did reach out to Comey's attorney for comment. He said he's been a part of Comey's legal team since May of 2017. News to me. And tonight I have some friendly advice for Comey's lawyer. You might want to acclimate your client with 18 U.S.C. 793 about leaking classified information, which is a serious crime, and your client needs to be held accountable. I have said many times this year, 2018, is the year of the boomerang, and now it's time for the disgraced former FBI director to answer for his deliberate, improper, and now potentially criminal actions. I have told you this is the biggest abuse of power, corruption scandal in the history of this country. The media has been entirely missing in action the entire time. And the same can be said of the many people at the highest levels of power. Sadly, no wonder why they attack me in this show pretty much hourly, daily. Hannity, Hannity, Hannity. Joining us now with the breaking news, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Sarah, we begin with you. Let's get into a deep dive into this new development.
I think one of the most important things that we've discovered, Sean, is the fact that, and this has been going on for some time, I've been looking into this for over a year now, is that McCabe actually gave a stand-down order, according to the sources that I spoke with, in the early phases of the Hillary Clinton use of a private email. And that would have been in March 2015, after the New York Times first broke the story that she was using a private email for government business. Shortly after that story came out, FBI agents with the Washington, D.C. field office opened an investigation into Hillary Clinton and began to look into all aspects of that. At that time, McCabe was overseas in Europe and sent a message, according to the sources that I spoke with, electronically to those agents and told them to back off and to stay away from that. Now, remember, it wasn't until July that when the Inspector General had actually asked at the DOJ, that was in 2015, to open an investigation into Hillary Clinton. And this is a significant development, Sean, because that means that there were possibly 2 stand-down orders. We know that the Wall Street Journal reported that there was possibly a stand-down order on the Clinton Foundation investigation. This adds a whole new scope to that, and apparently there is evidence to show it.
All right, let's go to Greg, the legal side. So much to cover on this.
If McCabe actually, for political reasons, gave a stand-down order, that would arguably be obstruction of justice. Even FBI officials can obstruct their own investigation. Look, it never made sense that people like David Petraeus, John Deutsch, Harold Martin, Sandy Berger, and a half a dozen other people were prosecuted for doing the exact same thing that Hillary Clinton did. And yet Comey stood in front of television cameras back in 2016 in July and said no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. He seemed to have amnesia that many reasonable prosecutors, including his own, had done the exact same thing. So it's very curious here.
We warned him.
Yeah.
Right here. You warned him. No good lawyer would let him write this book and go on this tour.
Well, and the other aspect of this is we've learned today that he's hired yet another lawyer. Now, the first lawyer,
Patrick Fitzgerald.
That's right. The first lawyer, Daniel Richman, is the person to whom Comey leaked 7 stolen presidential memos, 4 of which were classified in terms of their content. So now he can hide behind the attorney-client privilege with Richman. And if he also gave those same memos to Fitzgerald, and I believe he did, he's now hired him to hide behind the attorney-client privilege.
That put Scooter Libby, who was recently pardoned, he's the one that put him on trial.
That's
and
correct.
Got a conviction.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So you've got Comey now versus McCabe, and I suspect McCabe's going to start singing like a canary because he is in serious legal jeopardy now with the criminal referral against him for lying to the Inspector General.
Sarah, last word for you tonight.
Well, and I think a lot of other people are singing like canaries. That includes Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and everybody else who
Why
is
do they
involved
still
in
have
this.
top security clearance? Why do they still have access to this information?
Well, and I think that's important because I think the Inspector General still has access to them as long as they're still employed. And remember, they are civil servants, so it's not easy to get rid of them. But I have a feeling that they're actually cooperating, and that's why they're there.
Last word, Greg.
Yeah, I think when the Inspector General report comes out and criminal referrals are made, plea deals are going to be had, and people are going to start flipping and incriminating and implicating other people. And one of those people may be James Comey, who's now hawking his book, pocketing millions of dollars. And he better hang on to that cash because he may need it for his criminal defense.
Amazing. Guys, great reporting tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Sarah. Earlier today, President Trump praised the cooperation between France and the United States in standing up to the mullahs in Tehran, as well as fighting ISIS radicals. Take a look from earlier.
France and the United States also agree that Iran cannot be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and that regime must end its support of terrorism all over, no matter where you go in the Middle East. You see the fingerprints of Iran behind problems. I also want to thank President Macron for France's vital contribution to our very successful campaign against ISIS.
Here with reaction, former Deputy Assistant to the President and Fox News National Security Strategist Sebastian Gorka and NRA TV contributor, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. All across Asia, you see you see all these relationships. The Prime Minister of Japan, the President of China capitulating on intellectual property rights, on trade, on automobiles, on tariffs. You see what was unspeakable, Dr. Gorka, an amazing alliance to combat Iranian hegemony between the United States, Israel, the Saudis, the Emirates, the Jordanians, Egyptians. Unthinkable in the Obama years.
Yeah, and all of this in just 15 months. I mean, think about what he's achieved. We have NATO, we have the French Prime Minister within minutes of meeting the president on this state visit saying, you want us to spend more on our defense to stop being freeloaders? You've got it. The NATO Secretary General has done the same. That's after decades of freeloading inside NATO. We've seen ISIS decimated in terms of the physical caliphate. We've seen all of our friends and allies reassured in Asia. It goes on and on and on. It's really quite stunning that these are the kinds of results that you would be proud of as a president at the end of your second term, maybe at the end of your first term, but not at the end of your very, very first term. The idea, just the idea that Sunni states, Arab Sunni states, are now cooperating hand in glove with Israel to deal with the threat of jihadi violence in the Middle East is stunning. Stunning.
And it's interesting now, as the president isolated North Korea, we saw, Dan Bongino, what the North Koreans did. And the relationship, the good relationship that President Trump had with the president of China. That played a big part in all of this, and acquiescing on major issues. Now you see the same thing happening, the alliance created against the Iranian mullahs. Very different approach than backing up $150 billion in cash and other currencies in cargo planes.
Yeah, Sean, I think one of Trump's assets has been his unpredictability. Now, listen, you can chalk that up to whatever you want. I mean, the left-leaning hacks in the media have been taking pot shots at Trump on his foreign policy forever. You know, Sebastian's right. They mocked him over his approach to NATO until these countries started making larger commitments to NATO. They mocked him over his approach to North Korea. Oh, he's going to get us into nuclear war. Now the North Koreans are coming to the table with at least talks. I don't want to oversell it for denuclearization. You can't deny the fact, Sean, that his relationship with China, the economic pressure he put on China due to his tariff threat, probably had something to do with this. But, you know, it's really, I mean, honestly, it's sad as an American to watch the media, and not all of them, there's a few of them who've kind of come around a little bit on this, but most of them just continue to mock this guy as some kind of a buffoon as he runs rings around what Obama did in 8 years.
All right. I want to thank you both. Incredible night, incredible opportunity for the world, too. Appeasement never works. Peace through strength works. Again, we saw it with Neville Chamberlain versus Winston Churchill, all the people that were against Ronald Reagan, and we see it working here. Obama's appeasement didn't work. Clinton's appeasement didn't work. Unbelievable. All right, so much other breaking news tonight. Ed Henry has a live report on the president's high-stakes summit with the French president from earlier today, and Ainsley Earhart, and so much more. Straight ahead. All right, we're looking live at the White House where President Trump, the First Lady Melania Trump, hosting the French president and his wife, Brigitte, for a state dinner. Joining us now from the White House with much more is reacting to the president's visit from France, Fox News chief national correspondent. A busy breaking news night, and we do have new news breaking from our own Catherine Herridge, I believe, about Comey's memo. Leak contact had special employee status. This guy Richmond, the Columbia professor, Ed Henry.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's breaking tonight. The Comey memos still resonating and impacting. But you're right. The president also conducting a lot of business with the French president. They appear to make some progress in dealing with Iran. And that matters big time, because think back to what the Iranian foreign minister said on Sunday. He basically threatened that if the U.S. pulls out of the nuclear deal, Iran is going to speed up its nuclear activity. So this is a big deal, because what happened tonight is Bob Corker, the Republican chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, no ally of this president, was on Fox with her own Martha McCallum and was saying that he thinks the president is making some strong moves with his French counterpart, particularly on Iran, and that this may make the world safer. What the president appears to be developing is a compromise with President Macron of France on reshaping the Iran nuclear deal instead of scrapping it altogether. The president again today said the deal is insane and he wants to get rid of it if he has to, but added also if Tehran restarts its nuclear program, quote, you can mark it down. They will have bigger problems than they've ever had before. President Macron, meanwhile, largely supports the Obama brokered deal, but said today he wants to address President Trump's concerns by building on the original agreement instead of scrapping it altogether. Watch.
Because this is a deal with decayed foundations. It's a bad deal. It's a bad structure. It's falling down. If Iran threatens us in any way, they will pay a price like few countries have ever paid.
No matter what, it is rather about building a stable framework that will contribute to stability. It's not about tearing apart an agreement and have nothing, but it's about building something new that will cover all of our concerns.
Now, these two leaders have also built some rapport, obviously, after those Syrian airstrikes you see that the U.S. and France conducted together as allies. But there's a split over how long U.S. troops should stay in Syria. The president saying he wants to make big decisions in a very short period of time for pulling out U.S. troops. Macron today said he wants to stretch out that timetable. But the bottom line is what you're seeing is progress on some of these key issues. And just as some of the president's critics knocked him for some of the tough rhetoric last year on North Korea, now you see North Korea at the table. The president continuing the tough rhetoric aimed at Iran, and now you see the French president trying here to broker a way forward, Sean.
All right, Ed Henry at the White House tonight. We appreciate it as always. Joining us now, North Carolina Congressman. He's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus and also Freedom Caucus member, Florida Congressman, full disclosure, who I want to be the next Florida governor. Oh, and Mark Meadows, I actually shared a cookie with him in a green room in Washington, D.C. Full disclosure. Welcome both of you back to the program. Congressman Meadows, let me go back. Are we really going to get 6 months worth of struck page memos, and what percentage of those memos would that be?
Well, I do believe that we'll get those. I can tell you the Department of Justice is working very closely with Chairman Gowdy and Chairman Goodlatte to try to make sure that we get them. But there is a critical gap right now of about 3 critical months of the page struck memos that we believe will be very enlightening. In fact, some of that we believe will put some context to Director Comey's claims that, you know, he was just an innocent bystander in all this. We don't believe that the facts are bearing that out.
Interesting report by Sarah Carter tonight. Do you well, I guess you probably wouldn't be able to answer if you did know, so I won't. I'll spare my time. One of the things that we know, over a year ago, the State Department was supposed to hand over some 72,000 Clinton emails, Congressman DeSantis. We're still waiting for those emails. Do we know if that's part of the deleted emails? And is there any knowledge of if those 33,000 emails were ever recovered that we know that she tried to acid wash and destroy?
Well, that's the thing, Sean. You almost always can find the email somewhere, and yet in this case,
It was the FBI's judgment that, hey, these 30,000 emails, we just can't find them. Now, in the Judicial Watch litigation for FOIA, they've identified the backup server by Datto Inc. as potentially having those. The FBI never searched that. I asked Christopher Wray whether they did. He could not confirm that they did. So we need to look at all the possible areas where those emails were, because when you have emails subpoenaed, you don't just turn over the ones that you want to turn over and then acid wash the rest. That's not the way it works. I think there were a lot of work-related emails that they deleted. There may have been emails related to the foundation and other things that are of interest to Congress. So we've got to find them if they're out there.
Congressman Meadows, if you look at the original, in the exoneration of Comey and Strzok, and Strzok eventually interviewed Hillary, and then the original exoneration written months before the investigation, or the interview of Hillary and 17 other people, they had said, and it had been reported, that 5 foreign agencies had hacked into Hillary's server in the mom and pop shop bathroom closet. Okay, so here's my question. Yeah. That means they exist. WikiLeaks is a separate issue. They've always said it's not Russia. But if James Comey's original piece said these entities had hacked into it, that means other countries likely have them. So wouldn't it mean we'd be able to recover those emails? Because I don't believe there's 33,000 emails about any one wedding, funeral, or yoga that exists on this planet.
Well, you don't believe that. I don't believe that. And more importantly, the American people, Sean, don't believe that, because as we look at 30,000 emails, getting rid of those, isn't it interesting that there may be more foreign governments with Hillary Clinton emails than Congress or those who are going after it? I just find it just inexcusable. And so as we look at this, the bigger picture really right now is, are we going to get to the bottom of it? And I can tell you that the people I have the privilege of serving said it's about time that we get to the bottom of it, and I think that the coming days will provide a lot of fruit.
It's amazing how everything has backfired and is boomeranging. Both of you have done a phenomenal job. The American people deserve to get the truth on emails, about fixed investigations, about FISA abuses, about Hillary paying for a dossier full of Russian lies. We need to get to the bottom of all of it. All right, when we come back, President Trump's state dinner with the French President, Ainsley Earhardt, is here, and also to talk about her new book. Straight ahead. All right, Fox News Alert, you're looking live at the White House, where President Trump and the First Lady are now currently hosting the French president and his wife for their first state dinner, and the first state dinner of the administration. And according to White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, the First Lady planned every detail of it. Here now with reaction. Author of the brand new book, it's out today, The Light Within Me, Fox and Friends co-host Ainsley Earhardt.
Thank you.
You were with us at first of all, congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much.
You were there at the inauguration. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And this is the first state dinner. And I couldn't believe everyone's clothes and the hat that Melania. Why do people go there all the time?
To be honest with you, most of America is looking to see what she's wearing in a positive way. But some of the headlines, if you read them, it's trying to taint the story. Mm-hmm. These state dinners are really difficult to plan. Did you read Laura Bush's book? I don't know if you did, but I read it, and she went on and on about these state dinners and how much time and detail goes into each of them. If you're hosting France, you try to use the colors of their flag. You try to use a meal that has some French themes in them. You try to choose. You can't wear. Yeah, Sean, you're not invited for a reason.
I'm wearing jeans.
But so the headlines though today were Mediaite says armchair fashionistas had takes on Melania's giant hat, like she has an entire bird cage under there. Oh. Hollywood Reporter, is Melania Trump channeling Celine Dion, Beyonce? Time says Melania Trump's massive white hat has caused quite a stir. You know what?
It's just mean.
You know what everyone's saying? Everyone that I've talked to is saying, what a beautiful hat. She looks gorgeous. She has the last laugh.
All right, so before you released your book, you were kind enough to give me a copy, and I had a chance to go over the book and read it. And I
write
wrote
a little blurb for me.
I did write a blurb, along with Tim Tebow. You have some pretty good friends, high-ranking friends in your life. Anyway, I said very few public figures would be this real. I mean, you talk openly about your Christian faith, you dedicate the book to Jesus, and you talk about this on the program. You talk about really hard things in your life, and you reveal all of these things. I could never do that. I'm more private. tell us why and tell us about the things in the book.
Well, when HarperCollins came to me and they said, we want you to write a memoir about your faith, I thought a memoir is usually for someone who is 75 years old. I thought, I don't feel like I have had enough of a life, and I felt like it was I didn't want it to be all about me. But then when they say, we want you to talk about your faith, it's like God asking you to tell his story and what he's done in my life. And I can't say no to that. And I continue to say yes to God. I haven't always in every situation, but I've learned the hard way that if you don't say yes when God is nudging you to do something, then you won't be blessing someone's life, or you won't be giving him the glory that he deserves. So I had to say yes.
You did a lot of assignments over the years for Hannity's America and for this program. I mean, we were terrible. I think you were expecting a child, and we sent you down to spring break with my brother-in-law.
I was pregnant on the beaches of spring break,
right.
Yes.
And you talk about that, but you also talk about it in relation to your own life. And this was a pretty powerful moment where you actually said to yourself, I'm not living the right way.
Right. I was at a fraternity party. I was in a sorority. Half of my sorority, really strong Christians, I would say. There was a Bible study, and several of us were in a separate Bible study, but I was living with, 1 foot in the bar and 1 foot at Bible study.
1 foot in the bar.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you have to stop drinking, you have to do all this if you become a Christian. And a lot of people, they believe that life is not going to be fun anymore. But I was at a fraternity party, and I asked Jesus to come into my life. The whole story's in there. Changed my life.
It's very personal, and I think a lot of people get a lot out of it. It's called The Light Within Me, an inspirational memoir. Also, congrats on the show with Brian and Steve.
Thank you.
We hope you'll come back. Great to see you again.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Ainsley.
much for your
Appreciate
support.
it. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Amazon.com, Hannity.com, bookstores everywhere. Terrifying video. Next. All right, some very tense moments this morning in Palmetto Bay in Florida. Shortly after 9 a.m., Miami-Dade fire rescue workers, look at that, responding to the call. 2 men in distress, their scaffolding they were working on suddenly gave way. Now, the shocking footage shows these 2 construction workers suspended from safety lines near the collapsed scaffolding, which was hanging from the side of the building 3 floors above landing. Now, after dangling for over an hour, the first responders were able to pull both men to safety. Thank God, no injuries. These first responders, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, you guys are amazing. Thank God these guys are safe. Unbelievable. I was on scaffolding a lot in my life. It's some pretty high. It's scary up there. Glad they're okay. All right, that's all the time we have left.